The lights are still on in the Hôtel de Matignon, but there is nobody home in terms of leadership because the Prime Minister of France, Sébastien Lecornu, is currently trapped inside his own office, listening to the sound of his political career being crushed under the weight of 300 massive rubber tires that have effectively sealed off the Rue de Varennes from the outside world. It usually starts with a chant or a siren, but this time it started with a vibration, a low-frequency rumble that shook the antique windows of the Prime Minister's residence before a single vehicle even came into view. And by the time the security detail realized what was happening, it was already too late because the farmers of the FNSEA and the Coordination Rurale had executed a pincer movement so precise and so overwhelming that the Republican Guard didn't even have time to close the heavy steel gates before the first tractor nose was pushing against the gilded metal. This is not a protest, and this is not a demonstration. This is a hostage situation, where the hostage is the government itself, and the captors are the men and women who put food on the table of every family in this country. Prime Minister Lecornu is reportedly terrified, and he has every right to be, because for the first time in the history of the Fifth Republic, the barrier between the politician and the people has been completely erased, not by violence, but by the sheer physical presence of agricultural machinery that is larger and more powerful than anything the police have to offer. The scene outside the office is apocalyptic in the most literal sense of the word, with mountains of manure being dumped directly onto the doorstep of the building that houses the head of government, creating a physical wall of waste that symbolizes exactly what the rural population thinks of the policies coming out of Paris. The smell is penetrating the thick stone walls of the palace and forcing the aides and the ministers inside to breathe in the reality of the farmyard, a reality they have tried to regulate out of existence for decades, but which has now arrived to collect its due. You have to understand the specific geography of power here to understand the panic, because the Hôtel de Matignon is supposed to be a fortress. It is supposed to be untouchable, a sanctuary where decisions are made in quiet rooms with plush carpets. But tonight those carpets are shaking, and the decisions are being made for them by the angry mob outside. The reports leaking out from the staff inside describe a scene of total chaos with phones ringing off the hook and frantic calls being made to the Élysée Palace and to the Ministry of Interior, demanding reinforcements that simply cannot arrive because the tractors have blocked every access road within a 2-kilometer radius. They have created a dead zone around the Prime Minister's office, a sovereign territory where the laws of the French Republic no longer apply. And the only law is the law of the harvest, which states that if you do not plant, you do not eat, and if you try to kill the farmer, you kill the nation. Lecornu was supposed to be the strong man, the one who could manage the defense portfolio and bring order to the chaos. But he has been reduced to a spectator in his own downfall, peering through the curtains at the sea of green and red and blue tractors that have turned his front yard into a parking lot of rebellion. The psychological impact of this cannot be overstated because these politicians are used to being protected. They are used to being insulated. They live in a bubble of chauffeurs and security guards and private jets. But a tractor doesn't care about your security detail, and a manure spreader doesn't care about your polling numbers. When you are staring down the barrel of a machine that weighs 15 tons and is covered in mud and driven by a man who has lost everything, you realize very quickly that your power is an illusion. The panic is compounded by the fact that the police on the ground are refusing to engage. We are seeing video footage of CRS riot police standing down, removing their helmets, and even sharing coffee with the farmers, which is the ultimate nightmare for the government. Because if the enforcers of the state decide that the cause is just then, the state ceases to function. This fraternization is the turning point. It is the moment when a protest becomes a revolution, and Lecornu knows it. He knows that he cannot order the police to charge because they might refuse, and if they refuse, his authority evaporates instantly. So he sits there in his gilded cage, terrified not just for his job, but for the stability of the entire system, because he knows that what is happening outside his window is not just about a trade deal or a tax break. It is about a fundamental rejection of the technocratic rule that has defined Europe for the last 30 years. The farmers are shouting "Lecornu dégage" and "On veut vivre," which translates to "We want to live," a primal scream of survival from a class of people who feel they are being actively exterminated by their own leaders. The Mercosur deal, which would flood France with cheap South American meat and sugar, is the spark that lit this fire. But the fuel has been piling up for years in the form of insane regulations and crushing taxes and a contemptuous attitude from the urban elites who view farmers as relics of the past. Well, the past has come back to haunt them with a vengeance tonight. The specific targeting of Lecornu is significant because as the Prime Minister, he is the face of the implementation of these policies. Macron may be the architect, but Lecornu is the contractor, and the farmers have decided to foreclose on the construction site. The dumping of agricultural waste is a traditional French method of protest, but the scale here is unprecedented. We are talking about hundreds of cubic meters of slurry and rotting vegetables and old tires, creating a barricade that would take weeks to clear, even if the tractors left right now, which they have no intention of doing. They have set up camp kitchens, and they have brought sleeping bags, and they are prepared to stay until the government collapses or the deal is shredded. The image of the Prime Minister's office surrounded by a wall of dung is going to be the defining image of this era, a visual metaphor for the relationship between the people and the power. Inside the office, the panic is turning into hysteria as the realization sets in that there is no exit strategy. They cannot negotiate because the farmers demand the total cancellation of the EU treaties, which is beyond Lecornu's power to grant, and they cannot use force because it would trigger a civil war, so they are trapped in a stalemate of their own making. The aides are shredding documents, and the communications team is trying to spin a narrative that the farmers are extremists, but nobody is buying it because the public is overwhelmingly on the side of the tractors. Every poll shows 80 to 90% support for the movement because the French people love their food, and they love their farmers, and they hate the arrogance of the political class. Lecornu is alone in that building, isolated not just by the tractors, but by the contempt of the nation. He is the captain of a sinking ship, but instead of water, the ship is filling up with the righteous anger of the peasantry. The sound of the air horns is deafening, a constant drone that makes thought impossible and sleep a distant memory. It is a psychological siege designed to break the will of the occupants, and it is working. Sources close to the Prime Minister say he is shaken and unable to focus, continuously asking his security detail if there is a way out via helicopter. But the airspace is closed and the garden is full of smoke from burning hay bales. There is no escape. He has to sit there and listen to the verdict of the people. This is the reality of the democratic deficit coming home to roost. For years, Brussels and Paris have ignored the warnings, they have ignored the suicides, they have ignored the bankruptcies, thinking that the rural population was too spread out and too disorganized to pose a threat. They forgot that the rural population controls the food and the roads and the heavy machinery. They forgot that civilization is 3 meals deep, and that the people who provide those meals hold the keys to the kingdom. Now the keys are in the ignition of a John Deere, and the engine is revving. The fear in Lecornu's eyes is the fear of a man who realizes that his world is ending. The world of easy answers and backroom deals and corporate lobbying is being dismantled tire by tire and bale by bale. The farmers have exposed the fragility of the state, and they have shown that power does not reside in a signature on a piece of paper, but in the ability to mobilize and disrupt. The paralysis of the government is total. The National Assembly is empty because the deputies cannot get through the blockades. The ministries are ghost towns. The only thing moving in Paris tonight is the convoy of tractors circling the ring road like a tightening noose. And at the center of that noose is Gabriel Lecornu, sweating in his suit, wondering where it all went wrong. It went wrong when they decided that finance was more important than farming. It went wrong when they decided that the global market was more important than the local community. It went wrong when they decided that a farmer was just a number on a spreadsheet instead of the steward of the land. Now the numbers are fighting back and the math doesn't look good for the government. The intensity of this standoff cannot be exaggerated. We are one spark away from a tragedy, but also one spark away from a victory. The farmers are disciplined, but they are desperate, and desperate men are dangerous men. They have nothing left to lose, which makes them invincible. If the police fire tear gas, the wind will blow it right back into the Prime Minister's window. If they bring in the water cannons, the farmers will bring in the slurry tankers and win that duel easily. It is a checkmate in 4 moves, and the government is already in check. The silence from the Élysée is deafening. Macron is likely watching this on television, just like the rest of us, thankful that it is Lecornu in the trap, and not him, but knowing that he is next. The fall of Matignon would mean the fall of the government, and potentially the fall of the presidency. We are witnessing history in real time, the kind of history that is written in sweat and diesel. The terrible Tuesday, as they are calling it, will go down in the books as the day the tractor defeated the tank. The sheer audacity of driving into the most secure district of the capital and literally burying the seat of power in waste is a stroke of genius that has captured the imagination of the world. It is funniest, but it is also deadly serious. It is a carnival of revolution. And poor Lecornu is the clown in the center of the ring. He wanted to be a statesman. He wanted to be a leader. Instead, he will be remembered as the Prime Minister, who was besieged by beets and defeated by dairy farmers. The irony is rich and the lesson is brutal. You cannot govern against the people forever. Eventually, the people will come to your door, and when they do, they might bring 30 tons of potatoes with them. As the night wears on the fires outside, the office grow brighter, casting long dancing shadows on the walls of the Prime Minister's study. Shadows of pitchforks and scythes, the ancient symbols of the peasant revolts of 1789, reminding him that France has a tradition of removing leaders who forget who they serve. The terrifying part for him is not the violence, it is the legitimacy of the anger. He knows they are right. He knows the deal is bad. He knows the system is broken. But he is a prisoner of that system, just as he is now a prisoner of his office. He is trapped in the machine he helped build, and the machine is grinding to a halt. The farmers are not just surrounding a building, they are surrounding an ideology. They are besieging the idea that you can have a nation without a nation-state, that you can have an economy without production, that you can have a future without a past. They are reasserting the primacy of the real over the virtual. And for a man like Lecornu, who has lived his whole life in the virtual world of politics, the intrusion of the real is the most terrifying thing imaginable. It is the monster under the bed becoming flesh and blood. So he waits. He waits for a phone call that won't come. He waits for a rescue that isn't planned. He waits for the sun to rise on a France that has changed forever. The siege of Matignon is not just a news story, it is a turning point. It is the moment the rubber hit the road, literally and figuratively, and the friction is burning down the house. The farmers have proven that they are the true sovereigns of the land. They hold the power of life and death over the city, and tonight they are choosing to exercise that power by simply turning off the engine and pocketing the key. The silence of the tractors when they finally stop is louder than the horns. It is the silence of judgment, and the verdict is guilty. Guilty of betrayal, guilty of negligence, guilty of hubris. Prime Minister Lecornu is terrified because he knows the sentence for these crimes in the court of public opinion is political exile. He is watching his career end in a pile of manure, and there is absolutely nothing he can do about it except watch. This is the power of the people. This is the power of the tractor. This is the end of the line for the technocrats. The fortress has fallen not to an invading army, but to its own food supply. And as the smell of the countryside fills the corridors of power, the ghosts of the past are smiling. The Jacquerie has returned, and this time they have diesel engines. The fear is real, the panic is justified, and the outcome is inevitable. The farmers have won because they have exposed the government for what it is, a hollow shell terrified of its own shadow. And a government that is afraid of its people is a government that is already dead. The funeral rites are being performed tonight on the Rue de Varennes, to the sound of air horns and the smell of burning rubber. Rest in peace, the Fifth Republic. Long live the farmers. This is the new reality, and Sébastien Lecornu is the first victim of the new world order. A world where you cannot eat money and you cannot drink influence. A world where the man who grows the weed is king, and the man who signs the treaty is just a frightened bureaucrat hiding behind a curtain waiting for the end.